Welcome to the American Diversity Report podcasts, where we interview innovative change makers and creative people making a difference in the world. I'm Deborah Levine, editor of the American Diversity Report and your host. And with me today is Kallie Marie. Kallie is a recording engineer and record producer who has worked with a variety of artists and bands. She's also an award-winning composer whose work with Empath Tracks won the Broadcast Production Music Award. And that's how I found about her. So she has written music for film, TV, choreographers, and has a strong interest in creating music for video games. She is a freelance writer for Sonic Scoop, as well as a published author with Rutledge Taylor Francis and her latest title with Rowman and Littlefield. Welcome.
Hi.
Hi, that's quite a lot of busy times for you, hasn't it been? How'd you get started in all this?
Well, I guess it probably goes pretty far back. I went to performing arts high school, so the arts have always been at the heart of everything. And I started, like most kids, getting into music in my teen years, but I definitely had a love for it even earlier. And I think recording was always something I was fascinated by because I used to carry around Fisher-Price tape recorder and record, the lawnmower outside or, whatever. So it was always there. And once I finished high school, I moved to England and studied at the Leeds College of Music, and I did my bachelor's and my master's in music production. So lots of stuff there that kind of set the groundwork. And then I moved to New York City after university and just got stuck right in right away and was really lucky to meet a great network of musicians and studios and recording engineers, and just kept going.
I love it. So are you in New York right now?
Mm-hmm.
All right, New York City. Doesn't get much better, huh?
No. Busy place.
Yes. Well, I lived there for a while myself, so I know the amazing resources and assets that it has for people who are artistic and creative.
Yeah.
So you have a lot of research that you've been doing. Tell us a little bit about that.
Well, I started some of this research in 2016. I wanted to find out a lot of things that I was seeing, but also that I was hearing other people express that they were experiencing. And it seemed that a lot of people around me had theories about why there weren't any women around them in recording engineering and music production. And I would often hear things like, well, they just don't like it, or they would be here if they were more interested in it. Or, it's too hard. It's hard for anyone. And so I started wondering, when I was studying, I think I was one of three in a cohort of about 45 people in my undergrad. And then on my master's, I was the only woman. And I just kind of started thinking about like, okay, well, it's sort of a numbers game. So I got an opportunity with the first publication that I did with Rutledge Taylor Francis as a contributing author. So there were a bunch of other authors, and the editors at the time had asked me to start this research because they said, we think you'd be a good person to talk about this. So I spent a long time kind of thinking about the different categories of things that could go into why this is. And I wanted to look at early childhood development. I wanted to look at socioeconomic factors. I wanted to look at just how the music industry is structured, and more specifically the recording industry, because they're kind of different things. was like a microcosm within. And I also wanted to just find out from people that were doing it themselves what they thought, because we can speculate, but if we're not asking the people who are really doing it and who've been doing it for a while, they're going to have really good insights about how things have changed, or if it's changed and how they got started. And I think, I'm not going to say it's easier now, but there are some things that are better because there's a lot more visibility with, you know, the internet. There's so many avenues, but some of the people that I was speaking with, you know, were halfway into their careers without any of that there. So I had to wonder, well, you know, how did that occur and what got into it? And it turns out there's actually quite a lot of women interested in technology and recording and music and all of those things. And it's not a lack of interest at all. So that's how the interest, the research, you know, got started. And it took a long time to, you know, get the interviews together and find people who were comfortable speaking on the topic.
So who did you find finally to interview? Who did you interview?
I interviewed, gosh, I hope I can remember everybody. There's 8 of them. There's Sylvia Massey, Ebony Smith, Leslie Gaston-Bird. I hope I'm saying everyone's names right. Abita Austin, Carrie Pompeo, Andrea Yankowski, and that we have somebody that remained anonymous, and oh gosh, and Hillary Johnson. I think that's everybody.
I love it. I love it. Right. And what couple of major things did they have to say?
Oh, I forgot one. Jonette Napolitano. Oh my goodness. Well, they actually had a pretty wide range of things to say. Some topics, everybody was really on the same page. Everybody agreed that to them, one of the biggest issues was getting paid. And I think that just goes across the board for the whole of the music industry. So I thought that that was a nice unifying point. Others really, at other times, there were very different feelings about equality and diversity. I think some of them had leanings more that were like, you know, I've never really had a problem, and so I'm fine. You know, I it's water off a duck's back. And some other people said, no, I've had a tough time. You know, I've been harassed. I've had difficulties with pay discrepancies. You know, so it was interesting that there were some very big differences there in people's experiences.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was interesting. And a few of them at the end of the book, I asked everybody to just kind of, anything we didn't cover you want to share. And that's when they all kind of chime in with any stories that they felt like sharing, or topics they thought we didn't get to. So yeah.
And these are people across the country, not just in one city. Is that correct?
Yes. And I think Leslie is now based in the United Kingdom. So we even have one there. And I definitely had the intention of having a more international, you know, because I know that things like healthcare and childcare would play a large part in this. And I know that's going to vary across the globe. But I think, as far as I know, they're all American, although Ebony Smith was not born in America. She, I believe, was born and raised in Africa. Mm-hmm. So her start will be there before moving to America. But I don't know her whole story of that journey, but she does mention it in her interview that she started in Africa. So, you know, big differences there too. So it was nice. I tried to get as wide an age range as I could, as well as, you know, other demographics, you know, age, some have kids, some don't, you know, people of color, and the whole, you know, gamut, different sexual orientations. So I tried to really get as many as I could so that we had a better picture, but very hard doing this in 2016 and 17. You know, it was not like I was a a tenured professor somewhere getting sabbatical to, research resources and all the lot. It was, just self-employed person. So I think if I'd had more resources, I would have liked to have got more people.
It sounds like you did a very good job in getting a diverse crowd to interview. And, you know, these people are wonderful examples of this industry, but I suspect that the diversity of women that you chose is quite similar to other industries and what they're experiencing. So people can take away from your book a great deal for that industry, but also beyond music, for sure.
Absolutely. I think there's probably a lot of parallels for industries like video games, film and TV, and certainly anything that is technology related, sciences. I'm sure there's some parallels, although the inroads have been different, obviously, for things like medicine and some of what they would call the life sciences. They're slightly different set of statistics, I think, in those types of scientists. But yeah, I definitely think there's some parallels there. And a lot of the material that I was reading, as background research, definitely talked about the patterns that we see in STEM and STEAM for things like stereotype threat, where women would quit out of certain careers because they would end up feeling discouraged because of a lot of pressure of worrying about, they representing everybody if they're not perfect, and it creates a lot of cognitive load. So it was very interesting to see that, that's across the board, even with things like chemistry and, wherever they're less of themselves that they see.
Yes, indeed. I remember my mother informing me that I had to study computer programming back in 1965.
Wow.
And I said, no, I'm going to be a philosopher. And she said, no, this is not a suggestion, dear. And so, and so I got involved with technology.
Yeah.
But a lot of people don't have family to influence that.
Mm.
And did you?
Uh, Not really. I mean, I remember in my very early years, there was a record player in the house, and I liked to spend a lot of time with headphones on. But we were not a TV household. We didn't really watch TV. We had a small black and white one downstairs that could only be watched maybe on a Saturday morning with cereal. There was no computer in the house. In fact, when I started my bachelor's degree in 2003, I did the first year of my entire degree course without owning my own computer at a time when my cohorts, all had just grown up with them. And prior to moving to England, I'd been taking night classes at a community college, trying to learn about MIDI and trying to learn about recording and microphones and soldering. But there was definitely none of that at home.
No. Did
Yeah.
you have someone who mentored you and inspired you to go this route, which was unusual then?
Not no mentors, and when I was at 16, 17, I was just really passionate about music, and I spent a lot of time reading the liner notes and reading magazines and trying to understand, trying to put the puzzle pieces together of who worked on what record and what were the similarities and that kind of thing. And then I started taking these night classes thinking if I could get a lot of college credits done while I was still in high school, because I started taking community college courses while I was still in high school. And I also did a semester at an arts college for painting while still in high school. I thought I could get ahead. I thought when I graduated, I would be ahead. But I started taking some of the recording classes more seriously after high school because I found it really fascinating. And a high school classmate of mine had convinced me to take the classes with her. And I just thought, well, why would I take recording classes. And she said, well, you're in a band. This way you can make your band sound however you want. And no one can tell you how you should sound. And I was like, yeah, okay. So we went together at the beginning, and she dropped out later, but I had to take that class. So
So tell
yeah.
us about the band. I hadn't heard you mention that before.
Oh, well, it was a completely different band way back when when I was younger. But at the moment, I have a studio project called Explosives for Her Majesty. We have 2 EPs. I say we, it's mostly me, but I have kind of a revolving door of, hired guns that I bring through, who, sing and play drums and those kinds of things. And I tend to write all the material and do most of the recording and production work. But yeah, hopefully in the near future, there will be another EP. It's just a lot of time and resources. So.
And you do the singing too? Or-
No,
No, no,
I do not sing.
you do not. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So you're the manager and make it happen kind of gal.
I'm definitely not the manager. I'm the producer and recording engineer, and I write all the material. And if there's any like programming for like synths and MIDI, I tend to do a lot of that. That kind of those kinds of elements, and then I will find a singer that fits the style. And I've written the lyrics, but I usually like to let the singers kind of have a go at creating something that feels more authentic for them to sing. So it depends on if they have their own stuff that they want to. So I really, in that sense, a kind of like a classic producer, because I'm going out and assembling a band, and then we go into the studio because live drums are just not something I can do at home. So I'll find and rehearse everybody, and it's a lot of hats.
Yes, it is. It's wonderful. And
Thank you.
I'm so impressed that you are doing all of this and writing the book about it. Do you have any words of advice for a young person who might want to follow in your footsteps?
Oh gosh, it's really hard because everything changes so fast, especially with technology, and the business has really shifted. And I think it's going to keep shifting. I guess that's what happens in life. But I would say that the one thing that's really daunting is there's a lot of pathways in music. So it's not enough to just say, I want to do music, because you will find yourself at a huge crossroads, more than a fork. It's like a spaghetti monster, many, many tentacles. And I think it takes time to figure out what your focus is going to be and what your goal is. So that's important first, of knowing how many hats you can wear and which ones you think are most important to wear. And then once you find that, I think it's very important to just don't give up on those few select hats. And it's okay to say no to certain things. Don't let the fear monster get you. If you say yes to everything, you'll be overworked, overwhelmed, overextended, distracted and scattered, and not focused. And I think focus and persistence are very key, no matter what path you pick in music. So that would be the most general advice I could give.
Oh, it sounds like excellent advice for everybody. And I'm taking notes.
No.
I mean, in this wild environment, right? I've met few people who are not overextended. It takes a lot of self-discipline
Mm.
to make that focus your priority.
Yes, yeah, self-discipline is absolutely key. And I think, as much as people think artists are scatterbrained, I do think artists, in a lot of ways that people don't see, are very self-disciplined. If you're doing anything like that, to pursue something that's incredibly disorganized and inherently underappreciated, you've been disciplined.
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. Well, this has been wonderful, and I'm looking forward to the book coming out. Remind us what the title is.
It is conversations with women in music production, the interviews.
The interviews, I love that. Their
Thank you.
stories, nothing quite like the stories, right?
Yeah, a lot of good stories and a lot of wisdom.
Yeah, I bet there is. I bet there is. And people, I hope our audience is paying attention and know that we'll have a link to the upcoming book on the page with this podcast, so
Mhm.
that you can pre-order, perhaps,
Yes, absolutely.
right, as well as listen to this wonderful podcast and hear from somebody in a field that seems amazing and most of us don't know that much about.
Yes, yeah, it's very nebulous. It's the behind the glass. There's not a curtain, but there's glass. With behind the glass, moving all the buttons and faders.
Yes, and taking charge of the final product for sure.
Mhm, absolutely.
So I'm hoping that maybe you'll come back at some point after the book is out and let us know how things are going and what's next for you, right, in your career, because I suspect you've got quite a few plans.
Awesome. I would love that. I'd love to come back anytime. But yeah, fingers crossed for all the future plans.
Yes. Well, someone like you has to be organized and have plans, right?
Oh yeah. Yep.
Yes.
Daily, hourly, monthly, weekly. Yeah.
Right. And audience, I hope you have plans too, because that's what the world needs these days.
Yeah.
Thank you very much the audience for tuning in again to the American Diversity Report podcast. And thank you so much. It's been a pleasure, Kallie, to have this time together to hear more about what it's like in your profession and as a woman in your profession.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Pleasure. And the music world, I'm sure, appreciates all that you do.
I
It,
hope so.
it should. And music world, pay attention. So thanks again, and we'll be in touch.